So I just watched a video of a woman who's probably a liberal feminist who talks about all men being toxic and oppressive towards women and how patriarchy should be dismantled and all of that, hoopla. And what bothers me is that she's basically advocating for and saying it's okay to say that all men or to generalize, you know, um, and yet she talks about history and statistics. And like what a lot of people don't realize in this country, there are an overwhelming amount of specifically white women who support and promote and defend patriarchy and misogyny and sexism, that put their white men on a pedestal, even knowing that these men are abusive and oppressive, and in many cases, or racist and bigoted and xenophobic, and they're okay with that because they have this undying, desperate need, this emotional attachment to having their men represent superiority and societal standards and norms. They have this sick need to have this image be the foundation of society, right? And they're diehard, ride or die, supporters of their men, of their white men, and all of their policies. Now, in the household, they might argue and fight, and he might slap her around, and she might spit in his face and burn his clothes and call his mother or you know what, but in public, they stand arm in arm, and they have a smile on their face, and it's the whole Manchurian concept, right? And a lot of elitist uh, societies and groups and people and uh, organizations and institutions are based on those principles, those values, right? And at a certain point, when we're dealing with adults using their own judgment and intellect and making conscious uh, and consensual choices in life and in society, knowing right from wrong, women, it doesn't matter if you're liberal or a feminist, you cannot just ignore the role that women play in modern day society. Yeah, we understand that white women were oppressed and abused by their white men predominantly in this country. They also oppressed and abused black women, white men. Black men historically have been the most supportive and comforting and giving and charitable and patient and loving uh, uh, person to black women through all of the traumas, through all of the terrorism, through all of the exploitation, through all of the oppression. All we had was each other. And we came from cultures where we didn't treat our women the way that white men treated their women. There is a difference. Over time, from being exposed to this Eurocentric and westernized ideology and behavior and philosophy and policies and mentality, being exposed to it, being indoctrinated and being brainwashed by it, a lot of our black men have strayed away from our heritage, from our true nature when it comes to the relationship between us and our women. And some of us have adopted these very sick and perverse behaviors, abusive behaviors that we as a people did not do. We come from a society where women were worshipped and elevated, where women were queens, where women were literal warriors on the battlefield. You feel me? They were warlords. You know what I'm saying? Soldiers and warriors. Our religion and our folklore is flooded and overwhelmed and saturated with stories and history of praising and elevating and honoring and worshiping our women. And when you look at the history of white men and women, they had a whole movement. They was tired of y'all shit. They wanted equal rights and equal treatment and fairness. And sadly, they even infiltrated black communities and recruited black women to support their cause, a white woman's cause, and indoctrinated these women into believing that this is how black men. Your black man is not even in the home. He doesn't respect you. He doesn't love you. He doesn't take care of kids. Yeah, because y'all men had us locked up, had us enslaved, were hanging us from trees. You know, y'all was having picnics under our bodies, while our bodies were being burned and hanged, and y'all made policies to keep us unemployed and homeless and incarcerated. And y'all just did a number, divide and conquer, right? But these liberal feminists don't want to talk about the role that women play in the national or universal or global oppression of women in general. You don't want to acknowledge and accept the reality that an overwhelming amount of white women voted for Donald Trump to be the president, the CEO of this entire country. That these conservative women spoke on his behalf, campaigned for him. They just underplayed all of the narcissistic and sexist and misogynistic and abusive and terroristic attitudes that he had towards women and other minorities. And they stood by his side. And you can still turn on the news. You can still turn on your internet and social media, and you can see white women defending this type of sexual tyranny, this type of gender oppression. I mean, so please be mindful of your double standards and your hypocrisy when you try to demonize and vilify patriarchy and masculinity, because the reality is women have been and continue to be just as toxic and harmful as men are. In this modern day and age, in 2022, it's unavoidable. You cannot go anywhere in this country and not see women doing the things that they accuse toxic men of doing now. It's because power is very dangerous. And there's got to be a part 2 to this video.